You booked it, episode 209. What's going on, everyone? Thank you for joining me today on You Booked It, the #1 podcast where you learn how to create a successful entertainment career. Have you joined the You Booked It community yet? It is your go-to entertainment career resource. Inside, you'll have direct access to Broadway performers, Emmy nominees, and people just like yourself navigating this industry. Learn from those walking the walk. Build industry relationships, access unlimited masterclasses, and learn how to book the job more consistently. Join free today. Tap the link in the show notes or go to youbookeditpodcast.com/invite to get inside. And now, let's meet today's guest. Alrighty, let's get this started. I am excited to introduce my guest today. It is Pak H Chau. Pak, are you ready for this?
Yes, let's do this.
Brilliant. Founded in 2020 during the height of a global pandemic, CEO Pak established MOTI to help people from all walks of life to cultivate a deeper sense of self and a more profound sense of meaning and purpose. Pak found success at a young age, starting his first company at 17, eventually selling for 14 million Hong Kong dollars before graduating high school, and later founding Auction. Pak, that is a very condensed and quick intro of who you are and what you've done, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself, fill in the gaps, and a little bit more about what you do as a professional in the entertainment industry?
Sure. My name is Pak H Chau. I would say a very young person from Macau. And what I do, I regard myself as a storyteller. And what I really like to do from a very young age is to really ponder a lot on certain questions and issues that people kind of gross over. I think every one of us asks a lot of these questions sometimes about what it means to be alive,
Hmm.
about what lies beyond really our day-to-day life. And I kind of lingers on those questions. And with Moti, this company that I just founded in the past year, I hope that we can really be able to build a team where we can actually focus on these fundamental questions, existential questions that really makes up our day-to-day life, but and beyond, and be able to use different form of storytelling, different mediums. For example, right now we're focusing on music and animation and trying to explore these questions and explore and see if there are different perspectives that can come out of it. I think a lot of us right now with the pandemic and everything that we have to go on, we have to basically navigate through many different things, and things seems to be sometimes disjointed perhaps, but then when we really think about those fundamental things that makes up who we are, everything becomes more unified and becomes more connected.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's such a very cool company that you've created and what you're doing, and I'm excited to really dig into that throughout this interview. But
That's great.
first, let's dig into this first section here. And Pak, look, I am a sucker for a good quote. What is your favorite quote you'd like to share with everyone?
I would really like to share three really quickly. The
Mm-hmm.
first one is when I was starting being a teenage entrepreneur, I was really inspired by Steve Jobs. And one of the quotes
Yeah.
that he had was in the ad when he returned to Apple was the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And that really inspired me to think that, hey, I'm not just living in this, I would say, concrete reality that I was born with, but actually the reality that we live in every day can be changed by people, are built by people, and can be changed by people anytime. And that
Mm.
we have the power to change it. And that was really quite inspiring. Another quote that I would say is actually from, I think, Chris Brown. There are many iterations of this, but it's to say that the people that if you were never young and crazy, you cannot be old and wise. And that was a very, I think it's a very interesting quote because I think there are a lot of people who never actually took any significant risk with their lives and claim to be wise and basically tell people not to take risks when they were young. And I felt like that, hey, if you actually took the risk, actually one of the things that you maybe would realize is that I think a lot of people that they have regrets later on in life. Usually they're not really regretting the things that they did because most of the people they really didn't do a lot of terrible things. They
Right.
usually just regret never living that life that they had and with the chance that they had. And now when they realize that they don't really have that chance anymore, they have this deep sense of regret, thinking, hey, why did I not do the things that I really wanted to do when I had the chance to do it? So the last one I would say is with Alan Watts, who said that the purpose of living is just to be alive. And I when and that quote is so fundamental because I felt like we're always in this world, sometimes me included, we seems to be always doing this for that. We always seems to be, why are you doing this? Well, because of something else, some external, extrinsic reason why I'm doing this thing, which is our lives that we're living. We don't really exist to solve problems. We exist to live and experience. And sometimes I think if we are focused too much on the outcome of certain things or on the result that certain action yield, we forget that actually we are doing those actions and then we never truly experience those actions as we are doing them. And that action is just what we call life. And sometimes we kind of go past it by solving a lot of problems, by doing a lot of building a lot of great things, but we never truly experience it. It seems sometimes.
Yeah, 100%. I love all three of those quotes. Thank you for those. And I really like that last one as well. And like you said, how it's so fundamental. But I think the other side of that coin is you
Mhm.
said, oh, we get focused on doing this for that and always trying to move forward. But I think we encounter the same traps, especially now with so much social media, with so many platforms
Absolutely.
to distract us that oftentimes we don't do anything. We just
Mhm.
absorb other people's work, and that's the flip side of it. So, I mean, content is amazing. Everyone loves a good TV show or great music or great content to watch, but it has to also be something that is conscious. So we're not just
Absolutely.
scrolling our lives away.
Yeah. And I think when we are on social media all the time, that we take in and look at other people, and then we somehow establish some sort of an objective standard for how our
Yeah,
life should be. And that really is very gives us a lot of anxiety and really makes us question whether or not we are really living the life that we should be living, when in fact that we are just living the life the way that we are living it now.
for sure. I call that the comparison trap, right? And it's and especially in this
Yeah,
entertainment world, as for performers and things like this, it's such a huge hurdle or a huge obstacle potentially to really learn how to navigate successfully.
absolutely, absolutely, I agree with that.
Beautiful. Let's dig into this section here. And Pak, of course, you are an entertainment professional. I am an entertainment professional, and I think that you'd agree that
Hmm.
this industry can be one of the most subjective, brutally honest, and personally emotional industries in existence. And
Absolutely.
you know as well as I that in order to create and have a successful career in this industry, like you're having now, takes a lot of dedication and hard work. And while, yeah, there's an outrageous amount of fun doing what we do, there are also our fair share of obstacles, challenges, and failures we're going to have to move forward through. So tell us, what is one key challenge, obstacle, or failure you've experienced throughout your career, and how did you come out the other side better because of it?
I think for me as an entrepreneur, but also as an entertainer, I think it's the same thing, which is
Hmm.
whether or not you're able to inspire other people than to just dictate the work that needs to be done. Because I think a lot of there's so many amazing artists out there that where they what they want to do is to express themselves in their own way, and I feel like they need to be given that chance to do it. I think economically, but also within a certain company culture, that they feel like, hey, listen, I can be myself here. And to build that company culture, I believe is the most important thing. And I think in my past, sometimes I haven't done that very well. And sometimes because of impatience, because of short-sightedness, because of sometimes that we believe the work just needs to be done urgently. Sometimes those are the things that gets ignored. But I think to be able to find the best team, to be able to find the best people, but to also to be able to give them the space, to inspire them to create. Because for us, what we do is that we have this analogy now, which is talking about, for us, we are a company that explores existential concepts, let's say. And I think the for us is a very, as I said, is a very fundamental thing that we're doing. But then for us, there are many different talented artists out there. So when I say talented artists, let's talk about it like this. Let's say, for example, a violinist, the best violinist. And what the best violinists do is that they have this area, it's very specific areas of expertise. He or she plays the violin very well. Okay. And she basically would, let's say, use violin as an instrument of expression to explore and different topics, for example. Let's say, for example, I don't know, maybe like death or life, or maybe what it means to be in love and things like that. So she sometimes, I would say most of the artists out there wouldn't really have that much preference when it comes to exploring certain type of topics, but instead just using the instrument that they love, the instrument they're the best at to explore. And for us, we're on the other side. We believe that's the y-axis, and for us on the x-axis is, well, we have one concept, and that's really important, right? Let's say, for example, we're exploring the concept of reincarnation, right? What we would do is that we actually would say, go to the violinist and say, you know what, you're so good at violin. Let me inspire you with the concept that we have, which is extremely loaded and is extremely inspiring. Let me give you that. And then I'll let you go to work with that because you know what you're doing. And if I can communicate not just exactly what needs to be done, but also that emotion, that passion behind the concept that we have, not to mention a lot of other people, a lot of the work that were inspired by this concept by other artists in other areas. If we're able to give you that and to give you the space, but also give you the inspiration to do so, then actually great work emerges, great original work emerges. Whereas before, I felt like I was maybe perhaps trapped by having too much control, by not trusting people enough to do it. The best way to combat that, I felt like, was that one, we find the best people. So then there are no issues. But then when they're objectively the best, now you got to look at yourself and say, well, am I the problem? And when I look back, I felt like I wasn't the problem. But now I look back, now I definitely was the problem. So, whether or not I had the maturity to admit that, I felt that was very important because that allow us to really step to the next level, which is, hey, listen, Pak, maybe you can create some things, but definitely not on the same level as all of these great artists who can create so many different things. That level of diversity, that level of different perspectives coming together and be able to create this amazing community that just loves to create and that continuously inspire each other. That for me is definitely cannot be done alone. And sometimes you need to take a backseat and say, what are the certain type of structure and culture that you can set up and some sort of an environment where you can really be able to enable these amazing creators to really be successful.
Oh, I think that's fantastic. And having that self-awareness for sure. But everything I think you said extends beyond the company that you are doing right now with MOTI and things like this. Sure. But, even in much more analytical or technical types of environments, a lot of those principles can still be applied to everything you said. And I think it's amazing I guess what we have to realize sometimes is that you get caught up with your own vision. You keep doing your thing. But when it comes down to it, especially when it comes to the arts, that it's all a collaboration, right? Absolutely. You can only bring so much to the table. And your expertise is in one area, and then recognizing other people's expertise and then collaborating to make it something amazing. I think that's what it's all about. And that's really how you get the best work.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Absolutely right.
Beautiful. Did you know building industry relationships are the most important assets you need to create a long-lasting entertainment career? And don't take my word for it. Guest after guest here on the podcast have attributed some of their biggest career moments to their relationships. That is why you need to get yourself inside the You Booked It community. You'll learn what you need to do to get noticed and make sure your headshot stays in the callback pile so you can book the gig more consistently and create a successful career. Tap the link in the show notes or go to youbookeditpodcast.com/invite to get inside free today. Let's move on to a time that I like to call your spotlight moment, that one moment in time you realized, yes, I am going to be in the entertainment industry for a living, or I'm going to start a company in the entertainment industry. Or maybe it was, yes, this is what I need to be doing in this industry. Tell us about that.
I felt like for me, I never really considered the way that it worked for me. I never considered this, I would say, the entertainment industry for Moti. I felt like I bounced around many different ventures before. I finished high school. I started my first business in high school. It was successful. I used that experience to make that decision. Should I go to university? And it was a loaded decision. But for me, I really felt like, well, there's no way that I could learn so much in so little time, being in the real world, facing real rejections. And that was really what I really wanted to do. But I had a big falling out with my family as a result of it. And my family is an Asian family who they didn't go to university, but they believe that if we have the chance, which is the next generation, well, then we should go, which is
Mm.
completely understandable. And I think that I could have handled the situation much more maturely, but I did not, which is because I was immature, and that's really how it was, and that's fine. I think now I look back at it, but and that's I learned a lot from that process. But it really I had a chip on my shoulders at that point, and my dad was a very successful business person in his own right, and I really felt like when I was growing up, I was living in his shadow sometimes. Well, all the time. And then I felt like that I had something to prove now that we were in disagreement and that he didn't want to help me with this, my journey. And then I worked really fought to be successful really quickly to prove to him that I could be of something and that I could achieve certain things that maybe he has achieved, or maybe I can surpass him in some way in that type of twisted kind of way. And I really went into different industries. I went into tech. I tried to learn tech. I started off with tech, and then I went into esports, and I went on to maybe creating a penny auction website, whatever the case may be. So I went into different businesses, different ventures, trying to discover my own way, but while being very impatient, obviously learning a lot from the process, especially from all of the failures that I had. But then I kind of realized, damn, what am I doing? You know, I wanted to achieve that success, but at the same time, I felt like one of the moments that I had was when I was in the esports business and I was in the esports conference trying to promote my business, trying to raise a Series B round. And it was incredibly difficult. And then we raised a Series A. We had a few investors invested in this already, myself, my money included. And then at that moment, I looked at everybody around me, and that while I was in the esports business, I had a game server that had 200,000 subscribers at that point. It was successful. And I really was in that middle ground where I really had to take that next round of funding to push this to the next level. And I looked
Mm.
around me, I saw everybody. He loves gaming. You know, this dude, he loves gaming. He sleeps gaming. He wakes up gaming. That's all he can think about. And then that everyone around me was like that. And I wasn't like that. And I didn't really play games. I was there for the opportunity. I was there for the opportunity to really be able to step forward. And that was, well, wait a minute. If I were to do this, I need to take on new responsibilities as new investor comes in, new employee comes in, new partners that trust me to work on this as my life passion, because that's what exactly how I was selling it. Well, wait a minute, that didn't add up to me. And that really not something that I really wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I know that we don't need that level of commitment, but I felt like I did because I really want to. I felt like for me, I really needed to put a lot of attention and focus into something in order to make it successful. So at that moment, it was really a very, I would say, enlightening experience for me, which is, wait a minute, let's step back. So I wasn't able to raise that Series B round. I had to close my company, but I also had some time to reflect and think about all of the things. And I realized that, wait a minute, I think the harder thing to do than to make $1 billion would be to just, why was I so stubborn in that way? Because I was afraid to talk to my family, especially to talk to my father, to share my vulnerability, to share that, hey, maybe I wasn't meant to be like this, or maybe I wasn't built for this, or maybe I don't need to make the most. Maybe I have still so much to learn in this that I can't maybe achieve that level of success that maybe he didn't even expect me to do. But it was what I thought my expectation were. And that was something that I felt really important. And I went to different places, talked to different people, and I realized I need to slow down. And then as I slowed down, I would adjust the things a little bit. And then I slowly found the passion that I have with inspiring people not to do specific things, but to actually have the different in, not to solve problems. Because I feel like a lot of times there are always quick fixes about how the problem could be solved. But a lot of what I call enlightenment, I would say, is not to have the problem eradicated or solved, but to actually be able to see the bigger picture. And once you see the bigger picture, and then you realize, okay, the problem that I was stressing about all along is actually insignificant. So for me, I felt like that journey was that completely that for me. And I really wanted that for everybody as well. If everybody could see the bigger picture, I think we sometimes we stress, like with the pandemic, for example, I think we stress a lot before that. And then when the pandemic hits, everything stopped. And then you have the bigger picture and wait a minute, actually, all of these things that we had to do, actually, we don't have to do it. It was only imposed in that way because we did that. But then when everything stopped, and then when we step back, and then what I realized myself was, I don't need to be that guy I was supposed to be. I can just be myself in the family that I was, and I can share my vulnerability, and I really could be the bridge between my family where I can open up the communication. I can let everybody just be themselves. And that was the moment where I felt like if one of the things that I could do is through storytelling, we could inspire people to have heightened perspective about the really important things in life. And if we could do that, then I felt like that was really what I was committed to do. So that's I would say a pretty unique entry to the entertainment industry.
Yeah, I would say it's absolutely unique. And I really enjoy your journey and the realization and having gone into more traditional business or entrepreneurial businesses, if you will, and more of that journey, but to discover what you've created, what you've now are working on and creating. I think, there's always the solving problem, but the idea of helping people find that enlightenment, I think, is huge. That was a fantastic part that I took away from that. But I would like to piggyback on that real quick, and let's talk about your number one booked it moment. Walk us through that day, what was going on in your life, and what about that moment makes it your favorite booked it moment.
I think that's interesting. Obviously, I think for this purpose, we might have to redefine uh, the booked it moment because usually it's for
Yeah, let's do it.
auditions and things, callbacks and things like that. But I think um, for me, I think one of the early, I would say, booked it moments for our company is really creating our first animation series. It's called Kawan. And kind of after we created the pilot season, and we were very happy about the whole entire series. And Kawan is actually very interesting. What Kawan is actually about, if you search Kawan on Google, what you will find is the definition is a paradoxical anecdote or riddle used in Zen Buddhism that is primarily used to basically illustrate the fallacy of logical reasoning and to provoke enlightenment.
Mm.
And basically, what it does is that it's a little story. So what we have done is that we have created little stories, let's say 10 minutes each per episode. And for each 10 minutes episode, what we're trying to do is to use a story or a riddle or some sort of people would call like a parable to really illustrate that a lot of our predefined beliefs, a lot of the things that we got, a lot of the things that we assume actually completely reversed. So, for example, we look into concepts like reincarnations, we look into concepts like even heaven and hell, we look into concepts like black and white, duality, existence for each episode. And then we offer some sort of a different perspective to make people say, wait a minute, could it work like that? Can I challenge things that cannot be challenged? Those are the beliefs that maybe have been long held by people for thousands of years, right? Wait a minute, if these things can be challenged, maybe everything needs to be reconsidered. Maybe everything needs to be looked at, not from other people's eyes. And for me to just agree with them, but actually for me to look at it myself with a critical
Mm.
eye And I would say one of the book that moment was actually really interesting. It wasn't a success in the more commercial sense, but it was a realization that I had. I would say a philosophical book that moment. And that philosophical book that moment was I asked myself, what is existence? Right. And then I was like, what is it? So let's say, for example, I give you a completely white piece of paper, okay? A completely blank piece of paper. And I ask you, well, what is on this white piece of paper right now? What is on this white piece of paper? You might say there's nothing on it, right? So what if I give you a black piece of paper? And you might say the same thing. Well, there's nothing on it. What if I give you this black pen so you can draw whatever you want on this blank white piece of paper? So let's say you, for example, you draw a circle on it. I ask you this question. It's on this paper right now. You might say, well, a circle. And then, okay, what about if you draw a triangle? What about if you draw a square? Well, that's a square. So if you ask me, what is existence? You might say, existence is like this. We started off from nothing, and then we drew something on it. And the something that I drew is the thing that exists, which is actually how most people understand existence, right? And almost entirely because but that's how the world works. There was nothing, and then boom, there was something, and the something is either was created by God or whatever the case may be. But the something we drew is the something that existed. Basically, that's the belief, right? But
Yeah.
then what if we keep drawing? What if I'm not happy with my square because your square is bigger than mine? And I keep drawing that square. I draw a bigger square, but it's still not big enough. I draw a bigger square, but it's still not big enough. Soon enough, if I draw infinitely, I'm going to turn a completely white piece of paper into a completely black piece of paper. And then at that point, what's there? Is it nothing? Because you said black piece of paper. Well, there's nothing on it, right? Or is it everything? Because all of this white space that you call nothing has now been completely filled by black, right? All of
Yeah.
this nothing has now been completely filled. Or is it everything? Or can I make that very simple logical jump to say that fundamentally nothing is everything? Nothing is everything. What we call existence is not white or black. It's just the contrast between opposing forces, opposing what we define as oppositions, like black and white, like maybe up and down and left or right, forward and backwards. And those contrasts really create the kind of the dimensions in which our existence lies. Without these contrasts, there are simply existence is simply one. It's simply singular. But because of all of these amazing contrasts, we see diversity in this world. And diversity and what we call dimensions is really like a measurement of different in that sense, where we're measuring how different things are. Because if they're not different, if we are not different, then we don't exist necessarily. Because I feel like the existence is really about the expression of diversity, all right? Because if you and I are the same, then we are just one, right? We don't need to exist apart from each other. But the fact that we exist apart from each other, and that there is up from down and left from right, is really an expression of the universe of diversity. And I think right now, it's in a very divided world. I think a lot of us are talking about equality. I think a lot of it is how maybe gender needs to be equated, or maybe there are, for example, racial issues and injustice there. I felt like for us is the response that we have that also matters as well. And I think sometimes when we talk about equality, I think one of the things that we might want to focus on is what on our capacity and compassion to celebrate the diversity of life, to realize that, wait a minute, the fact that it is different is what makes us unified. The fact that it is diverse is what we should celebrate at the multiplicity of life, and that the different really possibilities, the infinite possibilities that can be discovered. And that's really, for me, definitely one of my most booked moment, I would say, in my life up to this point.
Yeah. I would say that's one heck of a booked it moment. You're blowing my freaking mind, man. That was so good. And I agree with you. That is very, very profound. Obviously, I can't rewind it in the middle of this live recording, but I will absolutely be re-listening to that section, as I think everyone else should right now. So good. Love that. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you so much.
And let's move to the present. Let's talk about that a little bit. What
Yes.
projects do you have going on right now? What are you looking forward to? And we're amidst this global pandemic, and you've talked about it a little bit, but how is that influencing what you're doing? Where do you see things going over the next couple of years?
I think right now with MOTI is for me, it's my life project. Really, is I've really committed to be doing this for the rest of my life with MOTI, and I want you guys to obviously check it out. But basically, for MOTI, we are working on, I would say, a few key projects right now. And as I mentioned, one of the key projects that we have is Kawan, our animation series. We have just produced the first season, which is on YouTube. Actually, a few episodes are already on YouTube. But we are actually looking to scale up the production for next season, and we will be, doing crowdfunding. We will be approaching streaming platforms where we can really be able to co-produce this on a massive scale and bring this content to people around the world and be able to distribute it in a much widely available ways. And that's one of the key projects I would say that we're working on is the Kawan animation series for next season. That's number one. And right now also we are working on a lot of different music pieces on the side as well. We're also going to be able to launch a new exhibition. It's called MOTI Expo, which is basically about going to different science museums around the world and actually using science museums as a very good space for exploration. But we want to basically take a more sci-fi approach, actually, to use a story that we have built called The Search for Utopia. And the story is, to summarize, is really about the journey of an astronaut who is basically venturing into outer space as a representation of humanity, discovering beyond, but truly finding home, finding ourselves within through that journey of exploration. And I really want to target teenagers and people who are in school, the next generations of creators and dreamers and explorers, to be able to not just teach them knowledge, but to actually inspire them and kindle that existential wonder that they have, and be able to really kickstart their journey towards exploration, not just beyond what our atmosphere, but actually within their souls and within their minds as well. And that's basically, I would say, a couple of things that we're doing: Kawan, MOTI Expo, and the music that we have, which is available on Spotify right now.
Very cool. Yeah. And for everyone, go to YouTube for sure and watch any of the episodes from Kawan. I will absolutely be making sure that they're in the description of this episode so you can easily click to them, but they're really fantastic. And it is now time to move to one of my favorite sections in the interview. I call it the Grease Lightning Round. I am going to ask you a handful of questions. I want you to answer them as quickly and concisely as possible, one after another. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, first question. What was the one thing holding you back from committing to a career as an entrepreneur?
I think it's self-doubt, and whether or not you look at yourself as fitting in with the rest of the world and what they expect you to do, or actually having that courage to venture your own path and be able to be who you really are.
Second question. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
I think it's to be extremely self-aware, to look at yourself critically, and actually the more that you can take, the more of a person that you are. Sometimes when we're faced with adversity, the more we can take. It's like going to the gym. The more you can take, the more you can lift heavy weights. It breaks your muscles and it makes your muscles stronger.
Yes. Third question. What is something that is working for you right now? Or if you'd like to go pre-COVID, what was working for you before all of this pandemic hit the world?
That's a really great question, because one of the things that I think with COVID, it disrupts a lot of things, but for us, it's actually a blessing. Not really in disguise, by the way. It's a blessing for us, but obviously we know what the situation was. Very terrible for a lot of people, but for us, we were able, because we weren't able to have this localized office in Asia, in Hong Kong. We were forced to look at recruitment and talents differently and say, you know what, why don't we just go international? Why don't we just go and actually find artists from so many different countries. And right now we're able to build, I would say, what I call a borderless team, a team that is completely virtual and completely remote, a team that is very authentic and to the core, a team that is international. And we have people working from many different countries coming together, not
Mm.
because they're in the same location, but because they have the same passion and they have the same really motivation to tell stories to inspire people. And that was something that is really working for us right now.
Oh, love that. And the fourth question, what is your best resource? Whether that is a book, a movie, YouTube video, maybe a podcast or piece of technology you found that is helping your career right now.
I think one of the things that I would ask people to look at is really to explore no code software, especially in the entertainment industry, not just in tech, but because I think the ability for us, I think, especially right now with COVID, it takes so much more to communicate clearly and articulate our thoughts virtually, online. And no code, a lot of the no code software out there right now, for example, Notion and Coda and things like that, allows us to work virtually, allows us to be able to document and be able to process, to put our thoughts into processes where we can actually be able to build that team virtually. So I think if you guys would look at a lot of no code software and see how that could benefit your career and see how that could benefit your organization, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, I am a massive fan of Notion. I'm using Notion right now. It's
That's
my
awesome.
everything. It's like my second brain, if you will. I think there's a couple of YouTubers that actually call it that. It's brilliant. It's dump
It's,
all
it's
for everything.
It's awesome. It's awesome. And also it's so versatile because you could build out things the way that you want, or you can just use the template. So
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. And I think they have a very strong community as well, because of the fact that people could share the design of their lives with everybody. And then you see that they are this wave of influencers, but also content creators telling people how things could be managed, which I think is all the rage right now. And I think when it comes to creative industries, that's one of the things that maybe certain people would overlook, which is talking about, hey, it's not just about the celebrities and it's not just about the production and things like that. It's also how do you manage that? How do we keep that whole process transparent and organized and in a way that could be not just happen one time, but actually be able to reproduce it over and over again. And having something like this would really be able to not just develop your own organization, but actually be able to have that be, I would say, something, a resource that could be shared to the next generations of creators as well.
Yes, well said. And the fifth question, if you had to start your career from scratch, but you still had all the knowledge and experience you've collected from your career in this industry, what would you do or not do? Would you do anything differently or would you keep it the same?
I would definitely keep it the same. But the reason for that is because I would never, like, it's a time travel loop because, because the problem is if I could, which I wouldn't, I would not have gone through the failures that I have. And those are really the fundamental building blocks of who I am. I'm not just my successes, I am very much my failures also.
Hmm.
And I'm very proud to be my failures because I went through that. And not only did I go through it, but I actually felt like I went out and went through it being a better person, not just because I had learned from the mistakes that I made, but because I had really be able to, I would say embrace the mistakes that I made, knowing that I can make those mistakes. And maybe I should make those mistakes. And especially some of the failures that I had early on as entrepreneurs, I would never have learned how to manage this company if I hadn't had the pain that comes along
Hmm.
with it. The pain of disappointing your investors, the pain of losing your own money, the pain of looking at your employees and having to let them go. Those pain live with me every day. And those pain are reminder, not just I'm not scared of them, but I will look at them as treasures, as memorable nuggets that I could use for wisdom, for making future decisions where I need to take that into account. And I felt like that is one of the things that instead of, I would say, maybe turning back some mistakes, I felt like one of the things that I would do not is to really be able to continue to make mistakes, continue to embrace them, and continue to, yeah, at that moment you should feel sad, because that's what mistakes are about. Like if you just okay with it, that's not very fun game. You should be sad, maybe even miserable for some time because you did something that you didn't expect yourself to do. Maybe you maybe underachieve. And then that's the process of learning is to get those feedback. Sometimes those feedback hurts. And sometimes the more it hurts, the more personal it is, the better it is for me personally to learn. So that's really, yeah, I would not do anything differently.
And the last question, what is the golden nugget knowledge drop you've learned from your successful career you'd like to leave with our listeners?
I think I would very much stay in the same tune and say, embrace it. The whole entire journey is all that there's gonna be. There is no external results or success that can come out of it except for the process of really enjoying doing the things that you love to do. And I think that's true for most entertainers because we are entertainers. We love what we do, and that's why we do it. We don't do it for external motives, and those things could come. There are external rewards that comes with it, and that makes the whole entire economy and the whole entire industry sustainable, which is fantastic. And you can have a comfortable life and everything that goes along with it, and you can you have trophies that you can show your friends and your future generations also. But never forget why you went into this in the first place. I would say a reminder that I have for myself all the time, which is when I get stressed or when certain things break me down a little, just focus on the pure joy and disappointment and of doing this because that is what we signed up for. And I think to not embrace that process, positive or negative, is really a detriment to the whole entire industry. So I would say really believe in that process and really kind of experience every ounce of it with graciousness and be able to just, it is a I would say for most of human generations, or for most of human history, we have it really rough. And now we're in this, I would say, even golden age of creators, of people that can be connected around the world, for people that can watch content at home. Take that opportunity, take that chance to really express what it means to be human. And I think right now we should be grateful for the chance that we have as entertainers in this world to really be able to express our voice.
Yes, very well said. Definitely worth a replay as well. And to
That's
wrap
awesome.
up this interview, Pak, it's time for you to give yourself a plug. Where can we find you? How do our listeners connect with you? Is there anything you want to promote?
You can find me on Instagram at Pak H Chau, and you can also find me on LinkedIn as Pak H Chau. So Pak H Chau is my name, so you can go online and find me there. I think we also have maybe a link that will be attached to this, so that's good. The thing that I want to promote is two things. Number one is multimedia, my company that I've been talking about in this podcast. I want you guys to check it out. If you guys are interested in exploring existential concepts and really be able to ask these important fundamental questions through different forms of storytelling, I think you guys should definitely check multimedia out. And then another thing, obviously, is the animation series that we are producing called Koan. That will be more updates for you guys going forward. But right now, we have really be able to already released 3 out of 5 episodes from our pilot season. So you guys could go check it out in the links below. And then obviously we will also very much like you guys to stay along in that journey. And then next year we're launching a big crowdfunding campaign, and it will also be partnering with streaming platforms to bring this to everybody's home. So I'm very excited about those things and just want to thank you so much for interviewing me today. I'm really happy to be here and really grateful to have a chance to share a little bit over here.
My pleasure. And everyone, thank you for listening out there. I have put the links to everything that Pak just referenced into the description of this episode, so you can easily go check out everything he's got going on. And also, be sure to share this podcast with your fellow entertainers, coaches, teachers, arts and entertainment educators, and anyone you know aspiring to create a career in the entertainment industry. You Booked It is the #1 resource of expertise on how to actually create a successful entertainment career. Case in point, everything Pak gave us today in this interview, so many golden nuggets, so many sections where you should definitely hit the replay button a time or two. So if you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. Pak, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for reaching out. So glad we got connected.
Yes, let's keep connected and keep in touch. Really keep up the good work with the podcast and everything that you're doing. Really fantastic to really bring the entertainment industry and the creative industries together.
Thank you. Thank you so much for listening today. If you enjoyed this episode and want more like it, be sure to smash that subscribe button. Also, be sure to join the You Booked It community. Inside, you can connect with your people, build industry relationships, unlock unlimited masterclasses, and access the tools and training you need to create sustainable career momentum. Get your invite link right now. Tap the link in the show notes or head over to youbookeditpodcast.com/invite, and we'll see you there.